AFCON. The draws were on yesterday. The entire country was watching. Obviously, what happened in Egypt is historical for us. We made it out of the group stages. Gabon is historical because 39 years later, we were at the AFCON again. Where is your mind, Denis, man? We have a young team now. You obviously will be the biggest fan of that side. But how confident are you with this team and this AFCON coming up in December?
Yeah, well, it's a pity I didn't watch the live draw because I was on the way to Uganda. But the moment I landed in Ethiopia, then people started sending me all these, and I was like, but I don't play anymore.
Yeah.
But it's because I'm still in football. I'm in Uganda.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I don't know what's the plan. Whether we are still building the team for the next AFCON that we are hosting home.
Yeah.
Because I think no one gave them a chance to qualify because it's a new team, very young team, who fought their way to the top and then eventually finished second, but it was okay. It was already done. And I don't know the coach's target, whether he wants to go all out or he's building these youngsters not to demoralize them for the next AFCON. But they must just enjoy the game. I mean, they're playing against two big countries, which is Tunisia and Nigeria, which is Tunisia didn't do well in the previous AFCON. I think they didn't even go out of the group.
Yeah.
They were knocked out by South Africa and
Africa,
Namibia.
yeah.
So it was difficult, the previous AFCON. So you must expect fireworks from them this AFCON. There's the Nigeria that didn't leave the trophy, but it has top players who are playing in Europe. I mean, African Football of the Year is Nigerian.
Yeah. Victor Osimhen.
They won the last.
Lukman,
sorry.
and the previous one
They
is
won the last two.
Osimhen.
Osimhen, then
So
Lukman, yeah.
they are playing against top teams, top players, but of course they also have a derby to play, which is the East African derby, and it can go either way. I believe they have the players. I don't know if they have the right mentality to fight because most of them, it's going to be the first big stage of football for them. And they have to give their best. They have no choice. I mean, in football, that's where the inspiration comes in. You beat the big boy and they say, if he managed to beat the big boys, so we can also achieve something in life. So it's uplifting for the young ones.
But as footballers, do you ever have, because we've been having a discussion right from yesterday, and Ian was saying, I hope we start with Tunisia, then we play Tanzania, then we wrap it up with Nigeria. But as footballers, going into the tournament, do you ever have that thought, say, maybe the so-called easier team in the middle, or we start with it, or we start with Nigeria? Do you ever have a preference of, if we can go like this, we might qualify? Or you don't care? I mean, it's 3 teams.
Well, you must have a strategy. You must have a plan on how you're going to approach every team, and that's for the coach. And as players, also, you need to know how you manage the game. But in terms of who's stronger and who's not stronger, I mean, everyone is strong at the AFCON. You might think Tanzania is weak. They might surprise you because their league is incredible. Yeah. When you look at how far Yanga and Simba are going in the Champions League and the Confederation Cup, it shows that they have a strong league and they have good players. If you look at Tunisia, where Esperance has to go to the Club World Cup, they have players in Europe and they feed the national team. You look at Nigeria, most of the players are playing in Europe besides the keeper who's playing in South Africa. Yeah. So there are no easier games. You must just win your first game. The best thing is to win your first game, get an advantage on the second game, maybe get a draw, the way we did in Egypt a couple of years back, and fight for your life in the last game. But if you don't get results in the first game, it's always difficult to come back.
How big an impact, you know, I've talked about TZ and you've mentioned Simba and Yanga, and we've been discussing the impact of Mamelodi Sundowns on the South African national team. I mean, for those who may not appreciate it, maybe when we say it, like you was seeing the impact of Mamelodi on the South African team, you get a feeling it could be the same for Simba and Yanga in regards to TZ. How big an impact can they have on that national team? Yes, they might not be having a big chunk of their local players playing for Simba and Yanga, but still, there's a good number of them. How big a plus is having those teams on the continent playing and then having the players for the national team?
Yeah, it always gives you an advantage because you know each other. Yeah. You know when I come short, when to give me, when not to give me, how I stand, the positioning and all that. Because if you look at a team like South Africa, they had like 8 or 9 players in the national team. and they know each other from the goalkeeper to the striker. But of course, you will also argue with me and say, but the other clubs the other national teams like Nigeria, every player is coming from a different club. Yeah. But these are different players from our own players who are playing in Africa. They are business-minded. Some of us take things for granted and I will play the next one. But they don't have a next game. For them, it's that game. Yeah. There's no next game. What if you don't play the next game? So for them to have a group of players coming from maybe the same league or the same club, it gives them an upper hand in terms of knowing the coordination and the movement of the teammate.
Yeah. And the fact that we have all these months now to the tournament, we obviously know who we're going to face. Works probably better for the coach and the players.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very good for the coach to prepare the team. I mean, how many months? 11 months. Yeah. There's a lot of players that need to get more game time, and of course, the challenge will be probably the transfer window or when the season. Yeah, where players have to move and now they are not settled and issues here and there, but that shouldn't be a point. They should fight because they have the opportunity. They don't know when next they're going to play again. Because I didn't know I'm not going to play the next AFCON. We just didn't qualify and that was it.
Right.
So regardless of the AFCON being at home, there might be another generation that will play that AFCON and not this generation. So for them to keep themselves in the team, they have to perform in this AFCON.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously I want to take you to South Africa. We've had this discussion several times about how this country maybe doesn't have a clear idea or philosophy or in terms of like how we want to build our players. Do you feel it different in South Africa? For example, obviously when you're talking about, when you think Sundowns, I think there's something clear in your mind as someone from a distance who's watching. It feels like there's a clear philosophy, an idea. Maybe it's just the recent coaches you've had that have implemented that, but is it like a country thing? Or is it just a club thing that has happened to influence the rest of the country? Are they intentional about building that style of philosophy? Basically, that's what I'm asking.
For South Africa, it's the culture of the club that influences the philosophy. Because at Sundown, it's called the shoe shine and piano. It's the Brazilians, you have to build from the back and play beautiful football. Regardless of what's happening, you must play beautiful football. For Orlando Pirates, you have to play on counter-attack. It's a fast game for them. Yeah. And that's their culture. For Kaizer Chiefs, it's a different story as well. So I don't know about our clubs here because we used to hear Express was the square pass moto and all that. And KCC Kawo, I don't know if they still have that in them and all those things. So it's about keeping the culture and implementing it on the pitch, which helps the player build confidence in such situation to know that when we go to buy a player, for KCC we'll buy a player who's got the flair, who's going to be comfortable on the ball and dribble and pass and not be scared to make mistakes, because football is a game of mistakes, but how are you going to know that you're going to make a mistake without trying? So for us in South Africa, they accept that the culture has to be kept and you must continue with this culture. You can't come to Sundown and say we're going to play Route 1 football. No, even the supporters will say, no, that's not us. Let's go back to our philosophy, and I think that's what we need to do.
Is that when you feel probably we should cut down on the number of players we call practical from every team? You say, this is how we want to play. Who plays like that? Probably you pick about 3-4 teams and say, whatever we're going to do, we're going to pick the players from these teams. Whoever wants to be a part of the national team, this is what the direction we decided to take. You must play similar to this. Do you feel that's the direction that the federation has to take?
No, I don't think so, because now you will look at isolating other teams who are not playing, because you're going to ask for...
You could probably pick 1 or 2, okay, who are exceptional.
Yeah, but again, you're going to look at, let's say, a team like Kitara, maybe their playing surface is not nice. And you have maybe a KCC pitch, which is okay. It's artificial, but it's okay. And they're going to play beautiful football. And you go to Vipers, who are playing also a different style of football. So when they come to the national team, everyone has a different idea on how to play. Now the coach has limited time to put these players together. But because they were performing at their clubs, he has to call them and make sure that they play the same style of football.